the country's shifting right, even Labour's shifting right, because the facts of life are conservative. We want strong borders, we want discipline, we want policing, and we're not getting it as we speak. Baroness Claire Fox is an independent peer and director of the Academy of Ideas. Hello, Claire.
Hi, good to be with you, Mark. I'd just like to declare now that I'm absolutely anything but conservative.
Well, indeed, that's the thing. But the facts of life are conservative, aren't they? And that's where we've lost our way, Claire.
No, I disagree. I know that's not why I'm on the programme. I actually think that the left-right argument is out of date now. I think that we have new challenges. I actually think there's a fine tradition historically on the left in terms of self-governance, pride in oneself, control of borders, discipline. All of those things come from actually, as much as anything, from a left-wing origin as well. But I just think it's like old hat. So I think we should stop talking about it myself. I think that it is important that we work out a new form of politics and not get bogged down in the old labels.
Well, I mean, we had James Matthewson on earlier, who is a political commentator, a good friend of mine. He's on the left, I think self-declared. He's actually quite unhappy with Keir Starmer's administration and his shift to the right. But he dismissed red wall disgruntled Labour voters as right-wingers. And isn't this the problem with the national conversation now? They're not right-wingers, but they are attached to small c conservative values that we have abandoned.
Well, they are important values, and I'm not trying to be silly about saying they're not small c conservative values, but actually I'm just pointing out that it becomes a kind of sectarian name-calling fight, and I just don't think it's helpful. I am absolutely full of fury about Starmer's Labour government. I don't consider them, by the way, to be remotely on the left, but they are making a mess of running the country, and a destructive motive behind a lot of this is that they just don't understand the lives of ordinary people. There's a huge gap between them and what most people's interests are. And they have attacked, because they've been bought into all the identity politics things over a period of time, they have attacked people for patriotism, for worrying about immigration and the lack of integration. They've been leading the charge when it came to demonising the red wall working class voters around Brexit, and subsequently who they wrote off as, you know, xenophobic racists. So there's a lot of criticism you can make at the Labour government. There was a huge amount of criticism you can make at the Conservative government. But for now, I'd rather that we concentrate on what we think we can pull out of the hat moving forwards, because I do think it will be very different from the traditional two-party system that we've got.
Well, indeed. I mean, we can ditch the labels, if you like, Claire, and ignore left and right and conservatism and all of that stuff. And by the way, when I said that the facts of life are conservative, I didn't mean that with a big C as in the Tory party. I just mean traditional small c conservative values. But let's have a look at actual policy. I mean, the things that we need to do, we need to scrap net zero because it's bankrupting the country. You can't have a growing economy when energy is the most expensive in the Western world. We need to close the border. Illegal immigration needs to reach zero because it's costing billions of pounds. It's an economic, humanitarian and societal disaster. Those are two easy wins already, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the net zero is really hugely important to get rid of, because if you look at any possible policy that the Labour Party comes out with in relation to growth, it's absolutely contradicted and cancelled out by net zero. You know, having cheap, affordable energy, particularly domestic energy that we're actually not using because it's fossil fuel, is some kind of moralistic rejection of what should be plentiful and something which ordinary people in this country can avail of because it will mean their bills are cheaper. And actually industry, or any prospect of having a growing infrastructure, requires cheap, affordable energy. And they have made that impossible because of net zero targets, which, as you know, both political parties bought into.
But Claire, you're confusing me. You sound right-wing to me. You're a conservative.
Yeah, that's because you're...
Time to come out of the closet, Claire.
No. There's no point having this conversation if that's the level at which we're going to go. The point about it is that there's nothing about that that's conservative. That's actually radical. It's radical and actually believes in the progress of the country through growth, something which, as it happens, we haven't had very much of. And the thing that drives me mad is that we're not going to get anywhere in terms of house building, something which, funnily enough, we've just lost Angela Rayner as a member of the government because of her personal, shenanigans in relation to housing. But the greatest crime for me was she never built any houses. Yeah. And actually, when you actually look at her job, she actually claimed that she was going to build all these millions of houses. Nothing has happened. In fact, house building has got stuck. And one of the reasons for that is this absolute, I would say, a conservative obsession with not changing anything, with not building on land,
NIMBYism,
but also this kind of environmentalist shtick, which basically says, oh, this green and pleasant land can't be disturbed. We've got to never actually make that kind of big infrastructural progress that we need.
Yeah.
And so she never built anything. I mean, it's a disgrace.
I agree with you. And I remember early in, I think it was Rishi Sunak's premiership, there was a radical plan of house building in the countryside, and it was rural Tory MPs that blocked it and thwarted his ambition. So the problem we've got, Claire, is that we agree on so many things, on net zero, on building more houses. I want to tackle inequality and poverty in our country. However, for example, if we look at that in particular, what about the size of the state? When are we going to have a grown-up conversation about the fact that whether you're on the left or the right, Britain's in the red and we live beyond our means?
I mean, one of the best examples of the problem with the state is the issue of welfare dependence. One thing, it's one thing being committed to a safety net of the welfare state. It's hugely important, right? That people are looked after at that level. We all know that what's happened is this massive, bloated establishment has turned people into dependents. And, the shocking figures around the overdiagnosis problem in relation to mental ill health, the kind of therapeutic interventions that say that people can't cope unless the state helps them, these kind of proposals that we've got to all have a label in order to ensure that our kids get extra help at school. And so you've got this kind of massive explosion of special educational needs, statementing and so on. Now, this is not to say that you wouldn't help kids who need that help. But the problem is that that's become almost everybody. And this actually sucks away the morale of ordinary young people, particularly. They just feel they can't cope. I mean, I was reared in one of those households that said, never, if at all possible, never sign on the dole, pride in yourself, always work for yourself, or your own living, the money that you earn, etc., etc. And that is sort of resilience and self-reliance is something that's very important to hold on to re-establish, because actually we've lost it. And unfortunately, to be fair, the Labour Party, people like Wes Streeting and some of the cabinet have recognised this. It's just that I'm not sure that they've got the stomach to see it through. And instead what they did was they just kind of put out a blatant, we're going to just cut everyone's welfare, which actually wasn't really the point. The point was to completely reform and shake up and start again what we mean by welfare, which is what I'd say about immigration as well. You have to not just reform these things, you have to, say that the 1951 Refugee Convention, for example, is out of date. It doesn't work anymore. It's not appropriate for the modern era. And that way you can actually really bring about change.
Well, exactly. And I do take your point, Claire, about labels. And it's interesting that someone like Simon Danchuk, who is an ex-Labour MP, is now Reform UK. And I think that there's a very fine line now between left and right. And it's all to play for, isn't it, politically, in this national conversation we're having. But it strikes me, in terms of responding to my Dolan dispatch earlier, that you've definitely blurred the lines, haven't you, in terms of how politics has played out. It strikes me that the Conservatives have abandoned conservatism and the left and Labour have abandoned the working class. So if you accept that premise, how does this play out in the years ahead, do you think?
Well, I think why I'm quite keen to stress this is because any new party coming through, and I've obviously got reform in mind, but if you want reform, as I keep stating to people, are just the vehicle through which people can express their both fury, but also their hopes and aspirations. And I was at the conference at the weekend, and my God, the energy, the sense of enthusiasm for something new was palpable. But one of the things that I found when I talk to people, and maybe it's because they know my background, was people don't want to join another Tory party. They don't want a re-warmed up Conservative Party. Well, they want something different that does go beyond left and right. I mean, it is the case that, you know, Labour voters have to be appealed to, or, you know, traditional Labour supporters have to be appealed to in order to get reform over the line. And in fact, they're absolutely desperate to have something new. And I'm from Wales, where Labour have absolutely dominated in a, you know, you can't get past the red rosettes in Wales. And yet it looks from all the polling that those Labour voters have really had enough. The contempt with which Labour has treated the ordinary workers over the years is now beginning to come back to bite them, I would say. So I think that, you know, for Labour, by the way, they think that what you have to say is, look, we've got somebody like Angela Rayner in the cabinet, which means that we must like the working class because she's here. Or they're all going around saying, look, all our cabinet, they're all state school kids who've made good. Or they say, well, we've got a workers' rights bill and we have a good relationship with the trade unions. They completely misunderstand that representing the hopes and aspirations of ordinary people is not something technical like that. It's about feeling that you're being listened to, that you're not being patronised to, that you're not being done to.
Yeah.
That actually the concerns that you have, whether it's about the asylum seekers in the local hotel, or whether it's about the fact that you knew for years that there was these serious sexual abuse and rape of young women in northern towns, but nobody would listen to you, or quite straightforwardly, that you had reservations and worries about things like net zero or about lockdown or whatever, but everybody told you to shut up and put up. That kind of thing is what they're missing. They don't understand the waving of flags. They think somehow this is an act of aggression, whereas actually a way of people saying, this is where we're from, this is our country, and there's nothing wrong with wanting it to be our country. And that's not a sign of, you know, ethno-nationalist right-wing, far-right feeling at all, although there are a few of those numpties hanging around the place. But the majority of people are just quite simply fed up of being told that you're not supposed to be proud of being British. And they've decided to do something rather engaging and interesting, which is to put flags up to show it.
Claire, a real
joyous and harmless thing to do.
Most definitely, Claire. It's such a thrill to have you on the show. You're not right-wing. You just talk a lot of common sense. Thank you so much for joining us. Baroness Claire Fox is an independent peer who is not attached to any political label, but I agree with so much of what she said. She's also the director of the Academy Ideas, which is a fabulous platform for the debate about all of these issues and much beyond.